Is this thing on? I think we're live. It looks like we're live. This camera stopped being that kid doing its own thing. What's happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Welcome to Mopar Chat Live. This is a live show that I host usually twice a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays. We talk about all things Mopar, sometimes other stuff as well. I'll give how-tos and some of my experience as a guy that's worked in a shop, has been racing basically my entire life, and has focused a lot on Mopars in the process. So it's not the only thing we talk about, but it seems to consume quite a bit of our energy. But with that being said, also, if you're watching this and it's after the fact, I'm thinking there's a new setting with the videos that YouTube has just put out to where you don't just get blasted with ads. If you're getting blasted with ads on this video, click out of it. I'm going to check on it, but hopefully with the new format, you don't get just inundated with ads the way that this thing used to. It's drive a lot of folks nuts, myself included, because I have to go in there and manually remove the ads. But with that, late night edition. So, and if you're new, like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. But here's the thing. Late night editions are a little bit different. Usually I'll have chats that are like an open chat where, I don't necessarily have a monologue on the front end. A normal live show, I'll have a topic that I'll be discussing for about the first 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on how long that goes for. And a lot of times guys will just check in for the monologue, and then I'll do an interactive portion of the show where I'm hanging out and talking with you guys. So I get it. This channel is really more a podcast than it is a video. So it's really more of a background noise generator. So just for you new guys, that's what you're up to see with the live show. I do other things like what's he doing in the shop? What's he up to today? Where I'm working on other stuff. It could be doing a tuning thing. It could be a ride along. You never know. And it's not just limited to Mopars. I work on Fords and boats and bikes and apparently a little bit of everything. So with all of that being said, what is this on my screen here? Late nights get a little bit weird sometimes. So let's dive right into it and say what's up to the early birds. Rome is in, base is in. DM's got the cadence with the flex. And the bald guy with the shades. I like it. So wanted to ask you guys, you remember this car that Dodge was, they were marketing the hell out of this thing. Hold on. It's going to come to me. What was the name of that thing? It was like a bug, but it wasn't the bug. It was what was it, like a stinging? Was it the ant? No, what was it? The Hornet. That's right. Y'all are right. Yeah, the Hornet. Yeah, remember when they were advertising the hell out of that thing? You couldn't go 10 minutes without that really weird advertisement for the Hornet. And have any of you guys seen one at a lot anytime soon? Have you seen one of these things yet? I certainly haven't. And here's the thing. Weren't we supposed to get some kind of like this flood of Hornets hitting all of these dealerships? Remember back in the before times, and Kaniskis was talking about all the ultra expensive stuff that the Brotherhood was going to give to the masses. You remember like the shell car and the carbon fiber hobby kit, and the convertible thing. Is that even anyway? Yeah, he said, oh, we've got all these orders for what they don't exist. And here's the funny thing with everybody that looks like, with everything that looks like it's supposed to be promising coming from Dodge in the future, we're not being promised anything. And that's the problem that most Mopar guys are kind of up against right now. Ford guy has got the Mustang. Chevrolet guy at least has the Corvette. Dodge guy doesn't have anything. And that's one of the biggest problems right now with Dodge is that they're doing this thing with Jay Leno with the wax, which is just, God, dog, that's cringy to me. It's just difficult, not because I've got any beef with Jay Leno. Actually, Jay Leno, I don't know the guy from Adam. Could be a great guy, could be a jerk. I don't know. But the thing is that you don't latch on to somebody who's retired. Okay, I want you to think about this for a minute. You want to talk about moving forward with the brand. but you're going to talk about moving forward with the brand. You latch on to a bunch of influencers, half of which I don't even know how they grew their channel to the size that they get to. It's kind of weird, but like they're not Mopar people. I would say way over. I would say about 90% of them are not really Mopar affiliated. But so you want to talk about moving forward and looking at a youth market, but then you want to latch on to Jay Leno. You're talking about the Hornet being the future and what these newfangled kids want to, that's the contraption they want to drive. But you latch onto a guy that touts steam-powered cars. This is the weird thing about Dodge. There's no consistency with this brand. And it's extremely frustrating because here it is left in the middle. Mopar guy is typically an enthusiast first and a brand loyalist second. I mean, guys, yeah, they like Fords, but Ford guys are typically Ford or nothing. Mopar guys, because most Mopar guys of a certain age were orphaned so early on, they were working with Fords and Chevys and imports and things like that. So Mopar guy, in a lot of ways, especially if you're a Cold War kid, you've got, for a lack of a better way of putting it, exposure to every other brand but Dodge, but you've always had a fondness for it. Well, the problem with that is you're not marketing. Dodge is not marketing to those now in their late 30s to mid 50s buyer. They're not marketing towards that person. And these are the ones with the money to spend. How stupid, how foolish do you have to be? Which one is it? So anyway, I find it super curious that this brand, who was talking about the Hornet looking forward, latches on to Jay Leno, who couldn't be even, you couldn't get closer to the past. There's nobody alive that you could try to latch on to, is what I'm trying to say, that embodies back then the way that Jay does. And I don't mean like there's nobody alive, like there's somebody driving the point. They're all dead. They're all dead. They lived long and awesome lives, but they're gone now. They've checked out to more astrological things. And the thing about it, though, is that this Jay Leno guy is the last collector enthusiast type that's out there. Nobody else has a link to the past the way this guy does. Why is Dodge not consistent with their it's just, it is so weird. Again, Dodge is very confused, in my opinion, on who their key audience is, who their key buying demographic is, what products they're going to come out with. Because they're trying to be a jack of all trades, they're a master of absolutely nothing. They're not getting any of it right. In fact, they're not being a jack of all trades. It's more like being a jerk of all trades. It's like you're getting your hands a little bit wet in something, but you're talking to the wrong people. You're getting played, Dodge. And that's the issue that I seem to run into right now with how this brand is moving on. It's that, by the way, please excuse the voice and everything else. I'm suffering through an allergy attack of epic proportions right now. But anyway, getting back to it, I find it really odd, though, that Dodge can't stay consistent with their own marketing. They just seem like they're very confused as to what's next. I'll give you a perfect example of that. You want to talk about a layup. And you guys that are frequent on the show, always talking about the Conquest or the ST or the Conquest TSI or the Starion TSI, how easy it would be for Dodge to just put the Hurricane Inline 6 into a thing that looks like a doorstop that weighs 3,700 pounds or 3,600 pounds with that engine in it. Looks like a doorstop, offset wheel and tire setup, that engine and transmission, and wipe your hands of it. Gary, thank you very much. Saying, what I be, love your chats. Here's a little something for the cause. Totally agree. Thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. But I've found that Oh, and by the way, for you guys that have given super thanks, thank you all very much. Super thanks is when you can actually donate if you watch watch just a standalone video as opposed to a live show. The only thing is, I never get notified of those, and hopefully YouTube's working on that to make the notification a little bit easier. But it is super hit and miss. I might get one out of 12 or 15. So Dan, thank you very much. Saying keep it up, Professor. Let them know I'm trying. Maybe they'll listen. Who knows? But the thing is that it's so difficult to watch this thing dissolve. I guess is the hardest thing for me throughout all of this. You know, going back to 2008 when the Challenger was released, it was such a cool car and it was such a cool time. All of the retro styling was kind of in vogue at the time. And, you know, you had the Mustang that set the stage and the Challenger that followed, and both of them were doing a great job bringing that old school look back. But, you know, now we're 15 years on from that, not to mention the fact that you've got guys of a certain age that are just looking for something that could be their own. And I feel like there's such a massive opportunity being lost. But to put out there into the world what is in essence, talking about the Hornet now, a rebadged, it's something, you know, I don't even know what rebadged car it is because I've checked out mentally. It's some SUV. Oh, speaking of SUV, Dodge, this is the kind of divorce that they have from their buyers. How in the world, Dodge, are you going to call a small SUV Durango replacement the Stealth? Are you kidding me? Seriously, like you couldn't come up with a creative name? You couldn't have used the Stealth for a new hot rod, like an all-wheel drive, really cool car with the inline six? You couldn't have done that? Are you saving it for what? It's just, it used to be a comedy, but it's not even a tragedy. See, for something to be comedic or tragic, you have to have, what's the best way to put it? Oh yeah, emotion invested into it. Because for something to be comedic or tragic, it's invoking an emotional response. It is a subjective genre. Apathetic is really more the word that folks are looking for. There is a lack of an emotional connection, either pro or con now for Dodge. And this is the problem where you can't really get, you can't get apathy back. In fact, it's easier to get something back if you've screwed it up than it is if something or somebody just finds it completely disinteresting. In other words, they've moved on. Your whole part of their life now is in the rearview mirror and it's getting smaller. And that's where a lot of Dodge guys are right now. Couple that, and this is just because they don't have a car to offer up for guys right now. Again, let's go back to the whole speech where we're supposed to be growing within the brand, right? Anyway, but couple that with the fact that these dealerships are gouging. I mean, it's basically, it's pornographic what dealerships are doing to buyers right now. And that is one of the key problems that I've had again lately. So guys, I take Stormy in. You know, when you buy a vehicle, a lot of times, one of the things that's part of the buying process or one of the incentives that you get that does actually have a lot of value are free oil changes, free tire rotations, things like that. So I have recently taken Stormy in my 2022 Ram 1500, which is running really good right now. But anyway, I took her in for her final free oil change. And while I was there, I was looking at some of the vehicles that they had in the showroom. And in the showroom, they had a gorgeous swinger Challenger. And it could be yours, including dealer prep, though, for $72,000. 72 whole ass $1,000 for this thing. That car with that emblem on it, stickered for 65 or 67. Can't remember, including gas guzzler. Hold on. So now, granted, it's a wide body, but it's a Challenger, y'all. And it's a beautiful car. Do not get me wrong. But the King Daytona that they had in that showroom was checking in at $101,000. DM, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. DM didn't have a, oh, he's got one right above. What do you think about Dodge putting the Hellcat motor in 2024 vehicles? They said they were done putting them in the L platform, perhaps a lot of platform, but still Hellcats forward pressure. Well, here's the thing. They've got to do something with them because they have plenty of them to do something with. Just like what I was talking about a second ago. They're not able to sell them. And that's the big problem. There are some image concerns that Dodge has right now with their cars being easy to steal, all than Fords or Chevys to steal, guys. Believe me when I tell you this. But in fact, I was answering a question about this today. One of you guys had said, man, I'm looking to get a Hellcat, but I'm worried about it getting stolen. They're not being stolen at the rate that you might think. If you get the RFID bricked, that eliminates 95% of the thefts right there. Get your neutral safety switch blocked off with your Destroyer 1320. Use code B Mason for that. And get your neutral safety switch blocked. And then if you have tuning software, I'm fortunate I can tune my own stuff. In my tune, which this is the hysterical one, because you can't disconnect the battery. You can't you can't fix this unless you've got the code to turn off valet mode. My valet mode, you put it in gear, great. It'll start fantastic. You touch the throttle and the car tries to basically die. So anyway, there's things you can do to keep your car your own. But my opinion is that a very not small, non-zero number of these thefts are insurance jobs. And you don't have to look too far for, somebody to lift one of these things should you need the service. I'm sure of that. So yeah, some of them have been stolen, but some of them haven't been. So, but as far as, getting back to the Hellcat, they got to do something with them. I'm sure they paid dearly for the ability to be able to put that Hellcat engine in the trucks. I'm sure the Durango is going to get it. Brampton is not supposed to be making any more of the LX platforms, LA or LC. So it'd be great if they did something cool with that engine, if they maybe could figure out a way to bring back the Viper, but actually put the Hellcat engine in the Viper the way that it should have been. That V10 was a boat anchor a long time ago. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those things that'll drive you nuts. I'll put it to you that way. But let me get back over. Oh, I just saw BM saying, no, it's homies wanting to do drivetrain swaps and 300s. I was selling the hood for big money. That's the thing. Yeah, they do. And that's who you contact if you need your car gone, right? And look, I know how the game works. I'm cool with it. Listen, you got this car, you're showing out, you're making payments for 6, 8, 10 months. It's putting you in the hole. If this thing leaves and you bought gap insurance like you're supposed to, the car goes away, no harm, no foul. Somebody gets a sweet 300. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'm not saying I would do it because I wouldn't. I put too much effort and energy into this thing, to keep it my own. But listen, no matter what it is, if somebody wants it bad enough, they'll figure out a way to come out and they'll lift it one way or another. But like I say, believe me when I tell you, those in the know how to get rid of cars. I can just say that. And I would leave it at that. Let's see. So I was asking, why don't they make Dodge Vipers anymore? Because nobody was buying them. I had a long conversation with one of the, this is actually going back quite a few years. Back in 2016, I was able to sit down with one of the marketing guys with Dodge, and at a Mecum car auction of all places. Anyway, was able to sit down with him, and we talked about the Viper. We talked about the Magnum. We talked about where the 300 was going. We talked about a lot of Hellcat stuff. Anyway, one of the things we talked about concerning the Viper and the Magnum, because oddly enough, the Magnum was coming up in conversation just as much as the Viper was. And he had offered me, they had a car there at Mecum, and he goes, would you buy this car for $87,000? And I said, because I've owned 3 Vipers. Matter of fact, there's a picture, you can barely make it out right there, of one literally 20 years ago, me at a VOI event in Kentucky with my old ACR. And anyway, I said, man, at 87, the problem with 87 is it's not 72 or 75. It puts you just outside of the range where most people can buy a car. And the guy agreed. He goes, you're exactly right. They had done, anyway, long story short, between that and the Magnum, he said, we're just not selling any of these cars. In focus groups, they did horrible in focus groups. In fact, one of the worst cars that you could imagine being shown for a focus group would be a Viper, whether it was the sound, the seating position, ergonomics, the fact that it was a 6-speed only with no automatic, the V10, which was actually a turnoff for some guys. Very dude-centric car. You have to have females buying, and I think 0.5% of Viper owners were chicks. So lots of issues with the Viper from a marketing and just a product standpoint. But anyway, let me get back up to you guys real quick. Rum said he's seen a couple of those Hornets at the dealership. Yeah, you see a couple of them here and there, but yeah, for over a month untouched. Yeah. Christopher is saying, good evening, B. We have 4 of the Hornets on the lot. Not impressed. Funny, it's only 4 of them, though. So let me put it to you this way. If they're supposed to be such a big deal, I can roll over to my local, and my local will have 40 different Rams. They'll have, I don't know, 16 or 18 different LX platform cars. The majority of them being Challengers, with, say, a third of them being Chargers. Minivan, just everything else. But 3 or 4 on a lot. Yeah, I haven't seen a dealership with 3 or 4 on a lot. That's actually really good. Brinson saying hello. BML saying cashed out on my 21 Charger Hellcat, had way too many problems, but it was worth a ton. I regret it, and now there's no replacing it for nothing near what I paid for my 21. I made 30 grand on it, though. That's a good point. That's a real good point. This car is for sale. That my Hellcat is for sale. And although y'all are the only ones that would know about it because I don't advertise it or anything, but it's only for sale to somebody from the channel, really. Like I say, I'm not really wanting to let it go for, just somebody to go rip it apart, only because I've got so much time and effort in this thing. So I'm reminded, so Orange Crush got rid of his car, and the kid that bought it has already blown out one of the front shocks, two of the rear. Basically, the car has just been completely abused in the last 6 weeks. It's back at that dealership, and it's filthy. It looks like it's basically like on the freaking flight back from Vegas after a 4-day bender. That thing is just wrecked up looking. Let's see. Snow's asking, did the Trans Am die because Camaro dominated sales? No, they both lived into 4th gen status. The TA died because Pontiac as a brand died. Oh, BM saying he replaced his Hellcat with the ZL1 and couldn't be happier. A lot of folks are doing that, by the way. ZL1 is a popular move over from the Hellcat. Brent, thank you very much. Say, hey, B, I have a 6.1 with a tick that I can't figure out. Good power and no misfiring at all. Any ideas? Not a load tick and comes and goes. Try a couple of things. Go through the gears. Let it get to operating temperature. Listen for it in park, reverse, drive. Make sure it's not transmission related. Also check to make sure that you don't have any exhaust leaks. That's the first thing that I would look for any of the Mopars would be any potential exhaust leaks. Other than that, when's the last time you changed oil? If it's been a while, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and get that oil changed. Older oil can make them tick as well. So there's a few things just right off the top of my head. Also check your idler. Sometimes they can, if they start going out, they can make a kind of a goofy sound like that. It's typically not very rhythmic though. It'll just be kind of like a random, like, I don't know, like jazz beat type of a thing. It's kind of a weird deal. So anyway, take a look at that as well. Also take a look at your belt. Make sure that your belt doesn't have any frayed things. I've heard of that being a pain in the ass sometimes. But check those things out first. Let me know what you find out. Let's see. Oh, Chris was saying, I just bought a leftover new 22 Challenger RT 5.7 6-speed Super Track Pack car. It's a fun car. I was wondering if you see a problem with running a thicker oil than the 0.20. No. A lot of guys run 0.30 in their cars. And no, I don't see there being a problem with it. There's no real need to, unless you start hitting it with, like track days or things like that, where you get the oil significantly hot. I still run 0.20 or 5.20 in my truck, whatever they're pumping into it from Dodge. But and to be fair, my fleet truck is a 0.20 truck. It's been that way for the last 188,000 miles now, actually. And that truck gets run, guys. I mean, run. So as long as you're changing the oil, I don't think you're going to run into any real problems. In fact, your oil pump, I mean, you're gonna crack the bypass, and not crack it like break it. You're gonna open the bypass on those. I think it's at 58 psi for the 5.7 and for the 6.4 pump. So actually, the 6.4 pump's at 64 psi. Anyway, you'll be hitting the bypass with either oil, so I really wouldn't worry too much about it. Saying, yes, sir, Professor Rand is what I walked into. Nice. Tux is in. What's up, man? Snow's asking, would you be very upset if you had bought a 21 Hellcat Durango, then found out they made 2 more years? I wouldn't, because I wouldn't have expected only a 1-year run, even though I know that's what they said. But I know of quite a few people that were pissed that they kept making that truck. Snow's also asking, why can't they just do a refresh of the Challenger and Charger bodies, like make different lights and stuff, keep the same performance engines? The performance engines they can't keep around because there's literally no way to get more power out of those engines, talking about the 6.4 and the Hellcat variants specifically, without some significant software changes, one, to allow for E85 and an intake manifold that could take advantage of a little bit higher RPM to go along with it. If they could get away with some of that, then you would see a performance bump. But the reality is that they're just not there right now. You can't get there from here unless you really start to ramp up compression ratio, and that intake manifold is a limiting factor on the 6.4. The 5.7, they just need to run the truck 5.7. In other words, a variable cam, variable intake setup. Now, you can put the 6.4 manifold on the 5.7, tune it accordingly, and that would be a great carry-on for a V8 for that car. I mean, you'd go from 370 to 400 horsepower. I just don't see where the problem is there. But that's the reason why. And listen, there's been a lot of folks. So you got to remember one thing. Back in Okay, so you may not remember this, Snow, but 2018 was actually supposed to be the last year of the LX platform. It was going to be a 10-year model run, technically an 11-year long model run, with 2018 being the last year, and the Demon was going to be the swan song for that. Where did I put my keys? Anyway, the Demon was going to be the swan song for that platform. But the thing kept selling. They kept making it. They kept basically re-upping the labor agreement. It crept on, limped on through 23. So there was no real exit strategy for that platform. There was an idea that they were going to move over to the Giulia platform, which is a Maserati platform. And then the Ghibli platform was also looked at, which is kind of what you can imagine the new Banshee, in essence, being not necessarily tied to that platform, but it's got a lot of Ghibli influence, it looks like. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that it was supposed to be, we were supposed to be sitting on top of a new car anyway. But in fact, by this stage of the game, we really should have been at least 3 years into a new car that would have been maybe called the CUDA, but it just never came through, which is weird. Red Dog saying, hey, B Ballpark, what am I looking for a cam and install in a 392? All right, so this is a little bit of an expertise part of mine. So here's what I would suggest for your cam. First of all, you're going to need to pick something that works with the stock intake manifold. You don't necessarily have to get your intake manifold ported, although I would suggest a Fastman 84 millimeter throttle body just so that you can take advantage of what flow you do have through that intake manifold. So between that bolt-on, a Hellcat air filter, and a Hellcat air box to go along with and to complement everything, you're going to need long tube headers. You have to have long tube headers because we're going to be tightening up that lobe separation angle quite a bit, and I need you to have long tube headers to scavenge. Right now, you got this super wide LSA that putting long tubes on a 392, although it helps, you don't see the same gains as you will in other cars with a tighter lobe separation angle. So those are, and you got the headers. Okay. So what you're looking at is cam, stand key tie bar, and collar. You're looking at springs, PSI 15, 16, or nothing. Don't. I had somebody asking me about a cam, say, well, what about these springs? And what about, okay, well, I've broken the springs that you're asking me about. So no, don't use them. So anyway, the cam, PSI 15, 16s, 080 push rods, non-MDS lifters, AKA Hellcat lifters, the camshaft itself, the gasket kit, the MDS block off, and basically everything that you're looking at, plus the tuning to go along with it, you're looking at somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000, depending on what the labor rates are around you. So in saying all of that, it is expensive. It's obnoxiously expensive, but it's the going rate to pick up the $100 per horsepower that you're going to spend on any modification that you're looking at. So the full kit, full bolt on, let's say you pick up 60 horsepower and you're into it for about $6,000, which by the way, was about the number most guys were looking to spend on cars when I put that poll together. You're going to pick up somewhere around 60 horsepower to the rear wheels, which is, again, the going rate for what most folks are looking at. And yes, I know you can get it done for a whole lot less than that. Some people are advertising $3,000, $3,800, or $4,000. Okay, go for it. But the thing is that you've got to make sure that you're getting the right parts to go along with it. That means that they're going to start absorbing all of their costs through labor or through tuning or both. And you've got to have all of these things to work together. Not one is more important. In other words, you can't just let things slide on a tune because you spent money on headers, or you can't go, which are Cooks, by the way, 1 7/8, or you can't go cheap on springs because you're buying a tune. It's not how this stuff works. Hemis are weird in this respect because, guys, you got valves that are as big as this coffee can lid in there. They're heavy too. This is a bunch of, anyway, you've got a lot of weight that you have to try to deal with. You've got a lot of weird valve train geometry. Hemis are goofy with valve train geometry, especially them being offset. There's a lot of strange stuff going on that you need to take into account when you're putting one of these systems together. And yeah, you can get away with less, but you're going to get less in terms of long-term durability and performance out of it. So I would say budget $6,000 and find you a shop that speaks fluent Mopar. Call it Pikes Performance. We used to get cars from all over the world, not just from all over the United States or just from Texas for that matter. We got them from everywhere. Minnesota was a big, I don't know why it's a Minnesota thing, but anyway, Minnesota, Detroit, Florida, a lot of California stuff. People would ship their cars in specifically to have us work on it. Alex is the guy that teaches people that teach the people how to get things done. And if you mention my name to those guys, you get a little bit of a discount. So go that route. It's probably going to be your best bet. Again, this is not the time to try to save money on something. I understand there's NSR cams and a lot of people try to hang their hat on NSR cams. And I know what they have advertised. And I know what kind of work I've put on NSR cams at the track. So, Base, thank you very much. Saying the transmission on my 392 is sealed, no dipstick. Correct. How often should I check it? You don't. Also, how often should I check my diff fluid? Annually? Here's the thing. For the trans, don't worry about it. They're sealed. None of the fleet trucks ever get service on the transmission. If the transmission starts to fail in one of the fleet trucks, the trans gets replaced. And believe me when I tell you that the guys that run the fleet trucks treat them basically like they're race cars. They do not go easy on them. So don't sweat it. Don't overthink it. The HP70 that you've got in that car is going to be just fine. Diff fluid, I would take a look at it. I would probably swap it after about the first 2 years, and then about every, maybe about every 2 years. You don't really have to spend a whole lot of time worrying about that stuff either with those cars. But just checking the level, yeah, annually is good. But if you don't see any leaks, it's all still in there. Brent, thank you very much. Saying, thank you, just put some new roll purple in it. I'm starting to lean towards a cam and lifters, but at this point does not act like it. Thanks for the advice, Mason. May send a video to see what you think. Cool. Post it up. Let me see what you got. And yeah, so a cam and lifters, let me tell you what a lifter will do. If you have a lifter that's not pumping up, my Buffy had a lifter that just didn't want to pump up the other day. It was kind of weird. It'll just be a tap, 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 tap. That'll rise and fall with RPM. A broken manifold bolt will typically go tap, 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 tap. Then it'll heat up real quick and it goes away. And then it goes away immediately. It goes away within like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds at the max. That's a broken manifold bolt. A lot of times, if you've got a lifter that's just tap, 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 if you whack the throttle a couple of times, it'll force it to pump up and it'll solve the problem. That's what I did with Buffy. Now you'll know that there's a problem with the cam or a lifter, like a serious problem when, by the way, old Chevy engines used to have problems with lifters not pumping up too. So this is nothing for old heads. Don't really pay any mind, but let me get back to the point. If you hear a tap with what you might perceive as a chirp, it's faster than that, but I'm trying to like accentuate the sound. It's like a tap with a like that, not air. It's like a metally sounding, like if you can imagine two machined pieces chirping against each other, hitting each other. That's when you've got a bad lifter. And I can't really describe it outside of that, but you will know it the second. You don't even have to have heard it before. You'll hear it and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But Base, thank you very much. And yeah, for the fluids, man, don't really sweat it. The coolant, every I mean, every 5 to 7 years or 150,000, 120,000 miles for that. I'd prefer to see like 110 to 120. Don't let it go to like 125. And that's mainly just because there's a, just like oil has a TBN, a total base number, there's an anti-wear and there's a base number. You can kind of think of it like that for coolant also. And then over time, it just can start to get a little bit more and more acidic, and it'll eat up a water pump. So, but I would say at the same time, you swap out coolant at like 120, 130,000 miles, also swap out water pumps if you get to that point. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a job. It doesn't take that long to do. It's not really anything else you got to do. But it's a good idea just as a maintenance item. It might be a good idea to swap alternators at that time too, although my alternator is still rocking. But Red Dog, hopefully that answers your question, man. I don't want to scare you away from doing a cam or anything like that, but he's saying, thanks, B, you got it. But it's just the reality of the game that you're playing, man. There's certain things, there's certain cams that you want, certain cams that you don't. There's profiles that you want, profiles that you don't. There's cams that work. There's cams that work when they really shouldn't work. And then there's other scenarios that can actually bite you. So if you stick to the recipe and you don't go too far in the direction of like trying to go too far aggressive, you'll be just fine. I've got a handful of cams that I put together that do really well, and but there's always a trade. You get over a certain size in terms of camshafts, and you start getting into that trade-off zone, and that ain't the zone you want to be in. There's a very narrow path that you want to stick within. So when it comes to these Mopars. And again, DM, thank you very much. Getting back up here, Snow's asking, do you think the C8 Z06 is actually attainable in the real world? I know somebody that's getting one, so I mean, technically it is attainable, but no, not for your regular workaday guy. See, here's the thing. Corvettes were really cool cars at one time. Not so much anymore, but I remember back when Corvettes were super cool. I grew up around Corvettes. I mean, you would think that I would bleed Chevy orange, but so Corvette represented hard work. In other words, you could, if you're a guy or a gal that's into Corvettes, keep in mind a lot of chicks buy vets. And you wanted to pick up, a couple of extra shifts a week. You wanted to take on a couple of more accounts if you're a salesperson, or you want to work a little bit of extra overtime. You could afford a vet, but it represented hard work and it represented something that you achieved because you worked for it. It's not really like that anymore. Damn thing's way too expensive. So it just doesn't, to me, the C8 doesn't represent Corvette to me the way that it used to. Willie's saying, Dodge the epitome of dangling a pocket watch in front of your eyes and taking money out of your pockets. True that. Oh, Red saying, yeah, Paul and I talked about that. He may not know this, Racer X and I are actually good friends. Said Durango and the TRX variants are a go for 24. Yeah, they are. BM saying, no. Oh, getting back to the homies thing. Yeah, I wanted to do the swaps in the 300s. That was a question about the cars getting stolen. Let's see. Red Dog saying, don't Hornet swarm. 4 is not a swarm. True that. Dan saying, only 5 Hornets on our lot. 1 got bought and was returned due to issues first days of ownership. So now we have 5 who come in and out of the shop for recalls. Ugh. X is saying Viper was canceled. Yeah. So here's the thing. And X is actually, I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Viper got 86 is because they had basically had alienated half of the population with the Viper that would buy one because they didn't offer an automatic transmission. And add to that a host of other issues, but not having an automatic is the somebody's heading out, is one of the key factors in that car losing out the way that it did. It's actually one of the key factors that made the Hellcat such a great car. And Brent, again, thank you very much. Basically saying sad when someone can't take care of their car. I think he's talking about that kid that bought Orange Crush. Yeah, that car got just torn up. I mean, and the thing is, it's not like the car sold for cheap money either. So this is somebody that spent good money only to have it get ripped apart. Not good. Oh, Red saying manifold leak will silence once everything heats up. That is correct. Sovereign. Oh yeah. Hit like and subscribe, please. Like, subscribe, share. It all helps a lot, guys. Stink Sam, what's up? And again, Red Dog, thank you very much. So Black Scat said, I wish they'd ended LX in 17. It would not have felt so watered down, especially now. A lot of folks, man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that have really started to transition away from Dodge. You've got a lot of folks looking, I mean, squarely at the Supra, the Z400, cars like that. Those are the ones that are getting a lot of looks right now, where everything from Dodge is just, it's like a cash grab. And it's kind of ugly, to be honest with you. I'll give you a perfect example. This car right here, Little Miss Revlon back there, I thought I had a car. I didn't have the actual, I had a, let me think about this for a second. What is this? Y'all are about to get hit with an ad. I didn't know they're doing that. That's crazy. So anyway, this car, I want to say staggered either 65 or 67. I can't remember. I've got all the build sheets and everything else actually on the wall. But anyway, I built that car recently just to see what it would go for if I were to build my exact car. And it was $82,000 for a regular body Hellcat with hardly any options, which I thought was just absolutely absurd. I mean, that's going up 25% in cost. I mean, it's been a hot minute since back then, but I mean, damn, 25%. That's a lot. Complex is in. Great evening, B. Great evening to you, my friends. Got the cadence. I like it. Oh, Red Dog had the question about the cam. Very cool. Base again. Thank you, brother. And Snow, yeah, at the end of the run for the 4th gen, the TA and the Camaro were identical underneath the skin. Red Dog saying thanks. Sean saying full bolt-on cam stage 3 RT versus stock 392 Hemi. See, the thing is that you have to define what does stage 3 mean. So there's no objective level of stages. So to me, stage 3 would be Holley Systemax intake, 2-inch long tubes, one of my race cams, ported heads. You see where I'm going with this? So stage 3, there's really not. I'll put it to you this way. If you're talking stage 3 where it's got a stall converter, 309 gear or 370 gear, the 5.7 is going to win the race. It had better win the race. I'll put it to you this way. Especially if it's one that you're going to be turning to around 73, 7,500 RPM. it will win the race. But I don't know if it'll be the car that you would want to drive. See, there's one of these things is when you start to get a car, especially the Mopars, you get them past a certain level, they lose a lot of the qualities that make them so great. And a stock 392 Hemi is a really cool place to be. Keep in mind, you got to look at it like this. Okay, look at the trucks. Because if you want to know where to go fast, if you're a 5.7 fan, the trucks win this argument every single time. My buddy Matt, who owns Moe's Performance, he's got every record that you can shake a stick at for trucks. Plenty of full interior street trucks are running mid 11s with 5.7 liter displacement setups. But it takes a hot credit card to get there, if you know what I mean. I mean, you're not going to get it on the cheap, but you can get there nonetheless. Another lately popular swap for guys is to take their truck and just 392 swap it, just 392 stock cam, stock everything, so that you get all the torque that the 392 is so famous for, and you get a bump in horsepower to the tune of about 100 or so. So there is that to consider coming into it. But yeah, it just depends. Like I say, it depends on what you're calling a stage 3. But with any heavy petting on a 5.7, you can eclipse a 392 or at least be right there with them. Brent, thank you again, bud. Snow's asking, why don't you just buy a 12-pack? I do. I buy a bunch of them, and they are in my drink station right there. They saying, thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, man. Red Dog saying, I have Flowmaster mids, but thinking changing them out for cherry bombs. Problem is, I have never heard cherry bombs, so how would that even work? If you've got Flowmaster mids and you want to switch to a cherry bomb, it would be identical to going to a Hellcat exhaust, because that's in essence what Hellcats have. So it would sound a lot like a Hellcat. Someone's saying, so it seems the Hellcat isn't gone for 24. What does this mean for the 392 and 345? Probably going to stick around, be my guess. So your last call may not really end up being your last call, which you want to hear a rant. You want to see me go thermonuclear. Let that happen. Like I say, I don't know that they've re-signed with Brampton, but dude, you got a bunch of cars running around with last call plaques that ain't the last call. Shit, I don't even know where to start with that. And what do? Okay, so check this out. What if you bought one of the sticker packages because you wanted a last call, I don't know, Super B, or you bought let's go even worse than that, a last call, I don't know, Black Ghost. Isn't that supposed to be the last of the breed? Isn't that supposed to be the best of the last of the? Oh, only to find out that it's not. Did you buy that thing on speculation? Is he about to get stung? Oh, that's why they came out with the Hornet, maybe. I don't know. Oh, Brent's asking, will it miss? Thank you very much, Brent. Will it miss if lifter is bad or be down on power? It has no codes in it. Thanks for all the advice. Happy to. So you may get a misfire if you data log it. If you've got data logging software, if you data log it, you may get a misfire or an accelerated misfire count. Although sometimes that doesn't even work because Hellcats on cylinder number 8 have a nasty habit of throwing false misfires. Anyway, it may not necessarily be down on power, but you would know it if it were a lifter because it would be consistent. It would be a lot of all the time. It would be a consistent tap, 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 especially when it's cold. If you let the car sit for, say, 72 hours straight, fire it up, and if you get a significant tap at that point, that's a lifter that could be clogged. And see, here's the thing. This is not a Dodge thing. This is a Chevrolet and Dodge thing. Any cam in block engine that has MDS, which is multi-displacement system, or DOD, displacement on demand, which is just killing cylinders in the fashion that they do. If you're not changing the oil regularly, those little passages can get blocked up, and it can keep those lifters from pumping up and acting right. And then you get the lifter tap, which can turn into a bad lifter just in general because you hammer the roller. So that's one of the reasons why it's so overwhelmingly important that you're changing oil in these cars. Never let them go over like 6,000 miles in between oil changes. In fact, if you hit 6,000 miles from your last oil change, the next time you drive it, those miles need to be carrying you to get your oil changed. But it may not necessarily feel like it's down on power if it's a bad lifter, but you would know that it's a bad lifter because it would be making so much racket, it would freak you out. Tux is saying, if I'd have been the new supervisor of Chrysler Automobiles, I would obviously try and have Vipers come back. You got to have it come back with an engine that is not the V10, because that's not a sustainable engine, because it doesn't share. In other words, it's not an economically viable engine. So it'd have to come back with some type of a V8. My just salivation, like the thing that would get me absolutely giddy over a Viper, would be Viper Hurricane Inline 6, but with a hybrid component to it. You know, something that would make it a 700 horsepower hybrid component. Oh my God. And have it be all-wheel drive. My people. So for those of you that don't know, Studio Z05 is located very near Velocito. That's right. Here in beautiful Southeast Go Fasterville. We're right here next to Velocito. And so occasionally you'll hear folks run by. And for those that have the show on or that know of the show, and then they'll be heading out, they'll pull through right here in front of where I'm filming, and they'll pipe it up a little bit and take off. So that's kind of fun. You're always welcome to do that. Black Scat saying, in my personal experience, I had to get rid of my Scat in 19 because of life, and that's crazy how much of a big price jump that is, for sure. Red Dog's asking, what do you think my Cat's worth? Who knows? Whatever somebody wants to pay for it, really. Walking around money on my car, it's kind of a weird thing because my car is an early Hellcat. Part of the second run of Hellcats. In fact, the paperwork on her, she tags it November 19th of 14, and my build sheets are all printed November 20th of 14. So the first commercially available, I almost said Viper, the first commercially available Hellcat, if I remember correctly, went into production in July, or the press cars were sent out in July. The first commercially available were the tail end of August or first part of September. And the oldest that I've ever actually laid eyes on, older than my car, was one from October of 2014. So that is the tales of the tapes. But I'm not sure. Since it's an early release car, there's some good and some bad. An early release, so it's had all the electrical gremlins you can have, being an early release Hellcat. But it was before there were any issues with the supercharger. So it's probably easily somewhere in like the 50 to 54 range is what I would guess as a retail sale. On the low side, maybe 47, 48. Dan saying, if you're ever in LA and need any of your Dodge car service, let me know. I'll take good care of you. Thank you very much, Dan. I do appreciate that. I don't get to SoCal as often as I used to. I used to live in NorCal. I don't get down to SoCal as much as I would like to. I do miss California. Ever saying, what do you think about Smooth Boost or Pedal Commander if you're blowing your tires off at starting line at the track? So a Pedal Commander can help. If you set the Pedal Commander to a little bit more of a chill setting, it can definitely help. Although I will say that track prep and the right tire will go a whole lot further than any electronic aids. Smooth Boost, I'm not familiar with. Very familiar with Pedal Commander and any of the regular, the pedal intercept or what they are. It's a signal intercept, and they really work good. Dan saying now I want them to not make the last call just to see the rant. I'm telling you that it's going to be, if somehow or another they end up making cars in 24, it is going to piss a lot of people off, or at least after 24. Arvo saying super for realized last call. So I was saying, then again, Dodge said that with the Hellcat Durango, and yet they made another in 24, which is very true. Superstock saying, what if they extended the production of the Demon? Don't be surprised if they don't. Also, don't be surprised if they extended LX and used the Demon 170 3-liter supercharger as your new Red Eye. Wouldn't that be a hoot? Could you imagine that? Oh, yeah, we're going to keep making it. And we're going to put that 3-liter supercharger on what we're calling the Red Eye now. It's like we did with the Demon, and we're going to make the rear fender available by itself. Oh my gosh, dude, that would be, I don't know if anybody'd ever get over that. Black saying it would be like the Durango Hellcat over again, for sure. Black saying we can't put anything past Dodge, which is also true. Moto X is saying San Francisco Auto Show supposedly returns after absence last year. What's there to look for this time? I don't know. See what they're going. See what hot dogs were selling for there this year. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything there. I mean, the S650 would be the only thing really to look at. The import stuff's always cool, but I mean, there's really not. See, here's the problem. There's really not any cool ass cars being dropped right now. I mean, you've got the Supra, you've got the 400, you've got the S650 with the Dark Horse variant. Nobody really pays attention to the GT500 anymore because of reasons. Dodge does not have anything we're talking about. The Jeep brand doesn't really have anything we're talking about. Basically, nothing Mopar related will be worth the price of admission. But none of the other manufacturers are making anything laden with testosterone anymore. Remember back in the day when Audi would drop like one of the new Quattros, and those cars were just really kind of nasty. They were pretty badass in their own right. BMW would have something that would be worth looking at, or of course, Mercedes, being the German rednecks that they are, would always have some kind of an AMG hot rod to play with. But there's just, I cannot think of anything, nothing that would get me to actually show up and pay for parking for the place. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. Let's see. Rum's asking, do you know what the little black box next to the rear view mirror is in the Challenger and Charger? That is the thing that is the auto dimming mechanisms, I believe, is what all of that stuff is up there. There also might be a part of the RFID stuff maybe up in there too. Although your hub is actually in the back of the car. but get your RF hub bricked. Make sure you just spend money and get it done. Hibby saying, Hibby got my Scat Pack in 18 after having an RT and figured I would be into a Hellcat by now. Up until early 20, it would have been $15,000 to $20,000 for a Hellcat. Now it's 30 grand plus. Good thing I like my Scat. Yeah, for sure. In other words, Scat Plus. And yeah, you're exactly right. It's just they're so expensive now, man. Tux is asking, don't want to be off topic, but have you heard of the new Lotus Emira? Drives on a Toyota sourced engine. I love V6 Camrys, and I'm going to love Lotuses as Toyota. There's been a lot of Lotuses back in the day would use Toyota engines. So, yeah, good, and they're reliable as hell. Lotus is a fun car. Oh, Hemi saying, okay, I have to ask, what is the exploded view of the shirt? Yeah, it's a watch. So that would be the thing on top. There's some mechanisms. So yeah, it's just a watch like it's been blown out. You know, I don't even remember where I got this shirt, but I've had it for a very, very long time. I've got so many t-shirts. I'll like end up just kind of rediscovering some shirts that I've got. But it is a watch. Good eye, by the way. Yes, it is a watch. So it's about time for Dodge to do something. So, so yes. And by the way, it used to be back in the day, I would Easter egg a shirt for my standalone video. So if I was doing a video, a lot of my old videos that like I would have the shirt that I was wearing had something to do with what I was talking about. Sometimes you had to kind of stretch to get there, but yeah. It was weird how it kind of worked out that way. So I'm saying German rednecks trademark. Everybody knows about Mercedes. But yeah, thanks. So saying I went to his dealership and saw new Scats for around 47 grand. Is that a good deal? It depends on how it's optioned out, to be honest with you. Not for a base model, but for a fully loaded, yeah, it'd be an all right deal for sure. Mike's saying is, we got a Hornet, and it's. I mean, how do you write home about a Hornet? You know. So, the Evora uses a 2 GRFE V6 with a supercharger. Very nice. All of those are really cool cars back in the day. It's a shame that they're not as accessible and popular as they should be. But yeah, so it's kind of a weird thing, guys. Make sure this thing is still running. I don't really know what to say about Dodge right now. I guess this is the main kind of takeaway from all of this. I don't really know what to say about Dodge anymore. I can't really get behind a brand that can't find. It's like their rudder is broken and the keel sawed in half. It's like the boat. It's just kind of listing here, listing there. However the wind blows, that's where it's going to go. The rudder, is subjectively working here and there. I guess for me, I need to see something more out of Dodge soon that doesn't have anything to do with wax or car washes. You're not going to see anything for the NA guys. And I want to see the technology for the 170 waterfall down for the Hellcat guys. But here's the thing with that. I own a Hellcat, but I don't root for the Hellcat guys. I'm not here for the Hellcat stuff. I have a Hellcat because for a number of years, I was competitively running that car at the drag strip. And from a durability standpoint, the Hellcat is unrivaled. And I mean to say unrivaled from just a flat out durability and reliability standpoint if you're using the car as a drag strip implement. But the thing is that we're never going to see anything coming from Dodge with the current management structure that they have. I mean, let me also put it in another way. Dodge will get my attention again when Dodge does something attention worthy. And I'm just not seeing that right now. I mean, look, let me put it to you this way. There are more people watching S650 dyno videos right now than a whole lot of Mopar content. I mean, just think about that for a minute. The S650, depending on the dyno that you're looking at, will drop either 408 or 428 horsepower to the rear wheels, depending on if it's a Mustang dyno, a dyno jet, how it's set up, blah, blah, blah. Basically, none of that. Don't worry about the numbers. Just know that that car puts down the same horsepower number to the number as a 392 Scat Pack will put to the rear wheels. And it weighs 600 pounds less. Or at least 400 pounds less. What do you think that looks like? Especially from a roll. It's not pretty. So, just saying. Get back to you guys. Lime's saying, going from a 262 to 309 gear, do I need to tune my new Hellcat? Don't need to tune it, and this is going to sound very counterintuitive, but get a pedal commander first. Install the pedal commander along with that gear. You're actually going to lose some boost response with the 309 gear. And that can be a bit of a, what in the hell? So there was another thing I guess they're doing like mid-show ads while it's live. So if I catch them, I'll keep it from popping up. But if you're watching this and you get pieced up with a ad and it's you're actually literally watching it live, that's what that is. I guess it's a new YouTube thing. Anyway, because there's less load, there's less mechanical load, you actually lose a little bit of boost response. So if you tip in the throttle hard, it'll really wake your car to you'll notice it. But under partial throttle conditions, up to about what you would perceive to be like half throttle, the car is going to feel a little bit softer. It's, again, counterintuitive, but it's a real thing. Pair that with a pedal commander, pedal buddy, pedal whatever is the one that blows your hair back, and just rock that. But other than that, no, you don't need to retune your car unless you're taking it to the drag strip. And then and especially if you're putting it on a drag pack wheel and tire setup like that back there, that is when you're going to potentially run into predictive shift, what's known as a shift yip. And that's where your predictive shift algorithm thinks that you're going to hit a rev limit before you actually complete a shift. And so what it'll do is it'll chop throttle to keep you from doing that. What it thinks is over revving the car. You will have to do some adjustments in the tune to fix that if you're taking it to the drag strip. But aside from that, no. Let's see. Oh, Sovereign's saying if we don't hear any new Dodges soon, that's whack. Funny. That's whack. Dan saying, Professor, what are your thoughts on the 5.7 e-torque? I have one and I like it. Now that I have a dealership cost price, it's been a temptation to get a Ram 1500 Rebel. If you do, the Rebels come with 392 gears. Get you one, you'll like it. I've done a lot of tuning on Stormy, my 22 e-torque 5.7, and that truck runs really good. I put 355 gears in it through my buddy Matt over at Moe's, and this way the truck should have come. For the four-wheel drive stuff, the 392s are great. Plus, you can turn your traction control completely off, which I cannot. So I was asking, is a Scat Pack a drag car? Every car is a drag car, man. But Scat Packs do very well at drag strips. Much better than they do in roll racing. Dan said, I just don't know the e-torque is known for issues. I've heard of no issues with e-torque at all. Especially not the later trucks. Sar's Hellcat engine offered in the Banshee? Not yet, it's not. Not that I'm aware of. Ooh, that would piss a lot of people off, though. Sean's World say, hey, B, is upgrading to 3-inch exhaust worth the cost on a stock and modified vehicles? Nope. I wouldn't even worry about resonator and muffler delete. That's just going to make it louder. Does not make it sound better. Matter of fact, if you do a reso delete, figure out a way to put an H pipe on that thing if you do a reso and a muffler delete, because it has this really shrill, flat tone to it. And this is just, it's a, although subjective, it's verifiable that an X pipe always has a flat tone to it. And so, but the 3-inch, no, you're not going to get anything from that. Plus, in some cases, the 3-inch actually weighs more. It's a detriment. Let's see. I mean, I'm running 2 3/4 stock exhaust on this thing, except for a pipes rear reso delete setup on it, which I kind of wish I wouldn't have done. Oh, Hemi's saying scat packs are super fun at the drag strip. Yep. Run high 11s all day long. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a high 11 car, for crying out loud. That is screaming fast. Some are saying scat packs where it's at. I agree. Love scatties. Oh, Donnie's saying, haven't gotten a chance to take my Hellcat to the track since I put the 309s in. Got to do some trans soon. Yes, for sure. Lime, thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate that. Didn't have a question along with it, but thank you very much, my friend, for the contribution to the cause. Donnie said, I notice it does this little jump between shifts, and I want to work that out. Little jump between shifts. Interesting. Never heard of that before. Don't know. Hey, Base, which video did you just link up there? Because I cannot see it. I will promote it, but I don't know what it is. Oh. Let's see. What else is going on? Oh, Mark's saying, oh, his first registered car show. Nice. Mark's saying, I have a 2021 Charger Scat Pack. I noticed that there is oil residue where the head meets the block. I looked on forums and they said that the bolts may have loosened. It's got 12,500 miles with 21 average miles per gallon. Where the head meets the block. I've never heard of any of them stretching bolts. I would take that to the service department and have them take a look at it, drop it off, and see if they need to, because those are torqued to yield. I've never heard of one or seen one actually have a bolt failure. I wonder if that is just dirt. Wipe it down. Before you do that, wipe it down and monitor it. You're not going to have oil leaking out of the head there. You shouldn't. So wipe it down. It could just be dust that's accumulated somewhere. Also check to make sure that you don't have like something loose in the PCV circuit. At PC, the pollution control, and make sure you don't have any loose hoses or anything like that. Oh, Dan saying 6.4 cam finally be installed in my 5.7 Chally. What should be my next mod? Already had ported manifold and now an 89 millimeter throttle body on the way. Any suggestions? The 89 is going to be problematic potentially, only because the opening in that intake manifold. The 6.4 cam is actually not a bad idea for the 5.7. I've got mixed emotions with it because it's got such a wide ass lobe separation angle, and it's a weird thing. It seems to work fine with that intake manifold. I've heard of guys picking up 20 horsepower with that cam. So it's not like you pick up a ton of power, but at least you can still kind of play with some cam phasing a little bit with it, with that exhaust cam opening up, or exhaust valve opening up so early. You don't have to worry about crashing a valve on the exhaust side. So there's at least that. But as far as what should be your next mod, I'm guessing that you've already, I would put the 6.4 manifolds on it for sure. Exhaust manifolds. You don't need long tubes with that cam. Just stick with the manifolds, scat pack, full exhaust. I think you'll be in good shape. I really wouldn't worry too much about much anything else. If you got a 309 with an LSD back there, that'll be a fun little car. It'll bridge the gap between a 5.7 and a 6.4. And guys are reporting that it works pretty well. Like I say, you won't hear me talking down about it. The 6.4 cam's got a 215 intake side, so it'll work well with the stock stock torque converter. It's weird. So I can't remember the guy's name, but I was going back and forth with a guy about camshafts for the 5.7. He seemed a bit cross with me because I would recommend a torque converter to go along with the cam for 5.7s. Why don't you recommend the 392 cams? You have to understand something. You work at a shop. And when you work at a shop, you don't get the sensible folks show up to do a cam swap. Like what Dan's looking to do is to do like a stock plus, where you've got a 215 cam replacing a 187 cam or a 189 cam. It's still a performance upgrade from a duration standpoint, but you've got now a wider lobe separation angle, which will actually help that better on the big end, even with the intake manifold it's got. So it's not a cam that I would put in my car, or that somebody, let me rephrase that, would pay to put into their car typically. Because what a lot of folks want is just more. You're going to the bottom of the page when you're talking about picking out a cam, which is to say that you're trying to pick out a cam with the most lift, duration, everything else you can stick in the car. That's not always the best cam ever. And like with my Joker cam, I would still probably want to put a converter in with that cam just because it's kind of a rowdy cam at idle. It's not a very big cam. So, but people would say, well, I want that. And then I've got a Contender cam. The Contender looks like a 392 cam, but it's got a tighter lobe separation angle. So it makes better mid-range power. But it doesn't really lope. It doesn't give a whole lot of theater. And some folks would say, well, I can't really tell the difference between the two. It's like, well, you're not putting a sensible cam in the car to really be able to tell the difference. What you're doing is you're putting the cam in the car to just get a bit more performance out of it. And you've got the means to do it. And you're not trying to do anything dumb with your car. So anyway, it was just an oddball conversation, but I got to thinking more about it. And I thought, the guy's being sensible, and he's telling me the same thing that I had told folks back in the day. Are you sure you want to do that? Are you positive you want to do that? Is that really what you want to do? Yes, I want all the sauce. All righty then. And then 6 months later, they sell the car because it's a kind of a mess to have to live with regularly. Oh, Dan's telling Mark to take a look at his gaskets. Oh, you know what? Well, slightly different part of the engine. There was, for a hot minute, we would have guys have issues with intake manifolds. So here's the thing. whether you had a catch can or didn't have a catch can, you're still getting quite a bit of vapors coming through the crankcase into your engine. And Dan, being at a dealer, you probably understand where I'm coming from with this already, but those are O-ring gaskets on the bottom of the manifolds. And over time, some of the 392s, it's like they instead of being torqued to, I think it's 19 inch pounds, not 19 inch pounds, not even 19 foot pounds, 9 foot pounds, 108 inch pounds, I think is the spec. Anyway, they were like finger tight from the factory. And so they would still seal, but you would get oil weep out from underneath those, the intake manifold itself where it bolts to the head. So it could be that. I just personally haven't seen it, but wipe it down and monitor just to be on the safe side. Oh, Lime said already answered the question. Oh, good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Donnie's saying any smoke on startup. A lot of folks have that little puff on startup. And that will, a lot of times that'll happen if you fire it up and then shut it off within like 30 seconds of firing the car up or truck up. Oh, Bay saying you can see me and my scat in the video. Very cool. And there's Dan telling Mark to look at the gaskets. Red Dog saying could be a leak from the valve cover gasket. Could. Yeah, sometimes, a lot of times stuff like that can have really weird origins. That's why I was saying wipe it down and like monitor it. Try to stay on top of it. Dan saying, granted, I got the cam for close to nothing. Yeah, stock 392 cams are pretty inexpensive. And I would just see if you can pull for the tuning of it. Not that I've ever tried this before, but see if you can pull the cam phasing for, well, I don't know how much piston to valve. You're going to have a little bit less piston to valve clearance with it, but for a 6.4 truck. Or 6.4 car, for that matter. I don't think there's any real difference. Oh, Hemi saying he went to a VW car show today. Very fun, and those folks love their V-dubs. Saw a 2003 made in Mexico Beetle. Yes, that's a cool car, by the way. Still jonesing for a Baja Bug. One of the guys that lives in my neighborhood has got a Baja Bug. It's yellow. It's very well sorted. Mark saying, actually, I believe its oil leak is coming down from the intake manifold and leaking down below the heads and block. Oil is more prominent by the number 4 cylinder. Then those are the ones in active cylinder mode. It could be what I was just describing. So check that out if you can. Base is checking out. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for the contributions, man. I appreciate it. Oh, Mark saying, I noticed it after the first oil change, went to the dealership for the work. It got worse after the second oil change. Check to make sure that your oil filler is tight. Also, 2.4, check to make sure that your PCV is tight as well. Dan saying, yeah, my manifold was leaking oil into injector 1. Yep. Gasket was crying out. Well, nothing noticeable overall levels, but yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was going to finish what I was saying. So yeah, you still get oil in the intake manifold. So I used to port a lot of intake manifolds, and I could tell you what type of intake the truck or car was running that I was porting just with how dirty the inside of that intake manifold was. And I could also tell you, or I could not tell you, though, if they're running a catch can, because all of them, whether they had a catch can or not, had oil sheen on the inside of those manifolds. So, but it's not uncommon if you pull the intake manifold off the cars, you'll see this little eyelid of oil on the intake valves. It's super common, nothing to it. The cars aren't using oil per se. But what'll happen is that fog of oil condenses onto the intake manifold runner and it'll just kind of drip down. So it looks way worse than it is. And a matter of fact, it's not only oil. A lot of it is just condensation. And it's just kind of the fact of the matter. I mean, you get condensation in the oil. It's one of the reasons why short trips, you got to change oil more often. You get more condensation, actual water in the oil. That's why you want to run higher oil temps driving down the road. That's why the manufacturers target 212 degrees. With the 392s, I think averaging like 230. Mark's saying, Dan, yeah, thank you for the help. Very happy to help. So with that, guys, I'm going to give you guys some updates as far as what I'm working on, and then I got to wrap it up because we're an hour and a half deep into the late show. The Daytona is at the shop getting new fork seals, a new rear shock installed, probably new bearings and everything else, but T595 is running really good. I had to replace a fuel filter in the Sierra because it was peeing all over the header. You don't want fuel gasoline getting on that. So I had to fix that thing. I will say this, it was using one of those little clear fuel filters. You almost consider them like a novelty fuel filter. And what had happened was the truck's not driven a whole lot, especially when it's hot outside. And the ethanol fuel looked like it was starting to eat away at the plastic that the thing is made out of. And so I think that it had failed there. I had moved things around a little bit, so it may have self-sealed. And you're only talking about a maximum of 9 PSI, so it's not a ton of pressure, but it is enough to make something fail, apparently, I guess, is what happened. I don't know. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of that. But it's not leaking now, so that's good, although I did kind of back into a light pole with it. Got to fix that. Anyway, just finalized the tune, basically the walking around tune for Foxy. She's running really good, although she does need an alignment. I did get the bump steer kit in. I picked up an SVE bump steer kit for it, but I'm starting to think I might not need it. I thought the car had 96 spindles and up. It's actually got 94, 95 spindles, which shouldn't be an issue for bump steers. So I think it's got more to do with maybe struts and alignment than anything else. But I did get a chance to take that car out and had a lot of fun with it. Buffy's doing well. Stormy, I've been playing with the tune with that car with driver demand, which is just a fancy way to say throttle sensitivity. And we do have a part coming for Stormy. So the engine intake that I picked up, I can't say I picked it up, that I ordered is now having production delays. So what I'm doing is I'm going to do what I had originally wanted to do in the first place. I'm going to keep the stock airbox, and Air Raid discontinued their tube, their stock factory tube replacement tube. The factory tube on a DT is kind of restrictive. It's like a supercharger carburetor hat, except it sits right down on top of the throttle body. Not the best design ever. The DT Ram, the DS Ram, the classics, if you will, have a better design where it's kind of like a half S design. Air Raid made one of those. Nobody bought them, and so they discontinued them. I was able to source one, and it should be in this week. And I'm going to be running that with both a K&N style filter and the stock filter. And we're going to see how it works, if it picks up any KPA. In other words, if the data looks like the truck's making more power, we'll try to do maybe a couple of 0 to 60 runs or something like that. So anyway, that's what I'm working on. That's some of the upcoming stuff that you can look forward to. But with that, guys, I've got to wrap it up. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for hanging out. Would not do this without you. Love each and every one of you guys. And listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. Believe me, everybody's got a fight. You just don't see them. Dan, thank you very much. Saying thanks for the show tonight, Professor. See you on the next live. Thank you so much for that, buddy. I appreciate you tonight. But with that, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the next one. That's a wrap. Adios.